Good afternoon. It's Sunday, 3 p.m. Central Standard Time in Champaign, Illinois. You're watching Co-op for Two. It's April 14th, 2024. It's a little bright in here. Today we're playing Mugbook, another case in Mugbook. This will be our third case. If you're not familiar with what Mugbook is, it's a 1983 game, very rare and out of print, and was a closely followed on the heels of Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective and was clearly influenced by it, but tries to do things a little bit differently. And I've been pleasantly surprised by it so far. It does feel like there's a little less story, but a little more police procedural feel to it. Before we get started, though, let's do a little bit of bookkeeping, catch up with the channel, see how everyone's doing. Joseph Mayu is talking about what we played last night, which was the game you see behind me, here, the Morrison Game Factory by Rita Orlov's company, Post Curious. Joseph was just saying he didn't realize till the end that this was the first game by them that wasn't written by Rita Orlov herself. It's a narrative puzzle game, and we had an interesting experience with it last night. I will have to put up a quick spoiler-free review soon, but I'll just give you the highlight of it. It was an incredible narrative in this game and very unique setup, quite exciting, compelling. But there were some elements of frustration, especially the last puzzle really put me on tilt. Maybe I was too hard on it. Maybe I need to do a little bit of soul searching about how certain kinds of puzzles get me angry, and maybe we'll talk about that next time we encounter a puzzle like it. Tomorrow, on Monday, we will be playing the third session of the Seventh Citadel, which has sort of got its hooks into me. Jonathan Warner and I have been playing that mostly. It's not the ideal game for streaming on YouTube, but there's something about it. Those have been long 7-hour sessions. I expect that will continue. Maybe even we'll play it again on Wednesday, depending on Jonathan's stamina. And then on Tuesday, there's an open slot. Either I'll take a break, or if people in the channel have a suggestion of something they want to do on Tuesday, I'm open to it. I've been trying to schedule one of the Sherlock Holmes crime dossiers, and there are 3 of them made in the 80s. They look very much like Dennis Wheatley's 1930s crime dossiers. They're based on the books. I was going to schedule one. Then I had a thought. They look long. They're mostly reading, but they're facsimile documents that you read. And I thought maybe we should try playing those on Sunday afternoons if we don't have a Dear Holmes letter, and just break it up into sections. Maybe you could even imagine playing one of those books. It's big, over the course of 4 weeks, just like we play the Dear Holmes play-by-mail cases. That's what we normally do on Sunday, the play-by-mail games, but we've run out of them. We're waiting for Dear Holmes letters to back up. Some of you may be subscribed to Dear Holmes. If so, you've gotten the first letter of the next set, but they don't arrive every week on time, so we tend to want to get a backlog before we start. So it may be that we try an experiment next Sunday and play one of the Sherlock Holmes murder mystery dossiers. You still have time to pick them up on eBay if you want. They are available. They're not that rare. Let me know what you think in the chat or in the comments about that idea. And what you want to do on Sundays if we don't have a letter to play. If you happen to be a subscriber to Dear Holmes before I started subscribing about 6 months ago, or you know someone who is, I would love to purchase or trade for old letters in the Dear Home series so that we could play through those on the channel. What else do we need to talk about? I've been recommending 2 series on TV over and over recently, Shogun and Ripley, both extremely high quality. I mean, we're living in an era of the TV shows, premier top-notch TV shows. Movies have gone in the toilet, but the shows are becoming extremely well done. Okay, Joseph Mayu says, I like the idea of breaking up the dossiers over a few Sundays. Okay, good. So we got 1 vote for that. We could also play Sherlock Holmes consulting detective cases on Sundays. There are not enough play-by-mail games. I am genuinely thinking about, well, let me take a little diversion here. You know that I've been working on a mystery game, detective game called High and Low. It's behind me there in that purple box. There is now a Board Game Geek web page, game page for High and Low. You can find it, and on there you can download a case for High and Low called The Wrong Book That I Wrote, and there'll be a couple more. There's another case that Rocky Helton made that's not quite linked yet, the new version. But you can absolutely download and play that digitally. And I think one of these days I'm going to try to do a live stream session of it. I don't know how that's going to go. Since I've written it, I can't play it myself, but I could facilitate it. If you're going to be in Champaign, Illinois, or in the surrounding area, I will be running some sessions playing it in September 7th, I think. And then in August, I'll be at Gen Con, and I'm going to bring a copy. If anyone wants to sit down and play it in person during Gen Con, I'm happy to set up a time to do that. It's going to take you 4 hours to play through this case, so it has to be for someone who really wants to do that. But the other part of that is that I've been working hard now on software tools for making cases for High and Low. And I've already written one that compiles the PDF books to make it easier to write cases. And you could use it to write Sherlock Holmes consulting detective cases as well. But the natural progression of that tool, which is now I'm making into an online tool, is to support online playtesting, but also a way to make cases and handle the play-by-mail back end. And I think with fairly high likelihood, I will develop the software into so that you can make high and low cases that are designed to be played by mail periodically, maybe either sending you PDF files. We talked about the idea of actually stitching together audio for radio broadcast, custom radio broadcast. So there aren't enough play-by-mail games to play, and I'm tiptoeing into the idea of making a system for that. So we'll see. Melissa says, I really like the dossier games. I've ordered a few from Amazon, so I would be all in for these on Sundays. Can't be for the in the evening live stream, but Sundays are fine. Okay. Rob says, we could do Mug Book on Sundays like today. Most of the cases are suitable in length. Anna says, do you remember the 80s Shogun series with Richard Chamberlain? I sure do. And that's a very good series also. It was quite popular at the time. It was quite a cultural event about the Shogun series. There was a lot of attention to it. And this new one is a modern retelling version. It's really worth watching if you haven't watched it. I thought the original was quite good as well, but the new one, both Ripley and Shogun are one of these shows that you really should be paying attention to every scene, because there's lots of beautiful camera work, but subtle acting. And in Ripley, there's some very subtle comedy that's very well done. And then in Shogun, there's some very subtle emotional writing, just very well done from the Japanese side. So lots of good stuff. Okay. Mug book. Here we go. What we have to decide before we start here is what case we're going to play. If you'll remember, one of the interesting things about Mug's book is that there's a lot of cases in this book. They're sort of short lead-ups. And I'll talk again, since it's been a while, when we play, I'll talk a little bit about the new mechanics and how they differ from Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective. But they're not a continuing storyline, so this is a fine episode to jump in on. The only thing to point out is Rob, who's in the channel, made some downloadable versions of these documents to play along with, in some cases better than the originals. So maybe Rob can give us a link to those downloads. But one of the things that happened was we haven't been playing these strictly in order. We skipped over one. We skipped over the XYZ drug ring. So here they are. We played the Sacred Heart Home for Unwed Mothers. We skipped the XYZ drug ring. Then we played last time the Garcia dry cleaning robbery. So what we have to decide now is whether we're going to, I think the two choices, we could just jump around wherever we wanted, but I think logically we should either play the Simpson drugstore robbery, or if we're in the mood for a particularly long case, we could decide now is the time to finally tackle the XYZ drug ring. So that's the question I have for you. Should we warm up before, since we haven't played in a long time, with the Simpson drugstore robbery and come back to the drug ring later? Rob keeps saying he doesn't know why they made this the second case, because it doesn't feel like it should be. So maybe we should start with the Simpson drugstore robbery, and then when we are really ready for it, tackle the drug ring big case. What do you think? What does the channel want to do? Wow, Joseph Mayu says, can we try the XYZ? Last two cases seem short. Well, let's do a little vote here. All right, vote whether you want to do a normal case or a long case. Are we ready for the drug ring? That's the question. All right, so type vote, long case, vote, normal case. YouTube says 18 concurrent viewers, 11 likes. Oops, we dropped down to 17. 17 concurrent viewers. Perry says normal. Joseph says long. Back up to 18 viewers. Isara says vote normal. Joseph says vote short. Rob says XYZ is much longer than any of the other cases. Okay, so we've changed our mind. We're going to normal. We'll have to decide when we're ready, when we want to play the long one. We could even save it for last. But we're going to play a normal case. Ease ourselves back into it. All right, so we're going to play the Simpson drugstore robbery case. All right, vote is over. Rob is the one that's done all the work on this, so maybe we should defer to Rob. Rob will be our scheduler for Mugbook. All right, Rob, it's now your responsibility to decide when we're going to play that big case, when you think we're ready. All right, let's read our introduction here. Anything else to talk about? You guys know you should just jump in on the chat, talk about any projects you're working on the moment the stream starts. All right, let's read our introduction here. The Simpson drugstore robbery, case 6091, 1-06091. Tuesday, February 14th, 7 p.m. Begin investigation on 2-1. So this looks like it might be a short case. Here's the time clock for the game. And you always start the time after when it occurred. So it occurred on day one. Case always occurs on day one. This time it occurred, maybe it always occurs on the morning after, but these are blocked into, each day is blocked into a 6-hour block. So I think it's 6 to 12, 12 to 6, 6 to midnight, midnight to 6 a.m., and then the morning of the next day. So we're starting on the second day. All right. Not really important. A little bit of overcomplication. Location, Dale Street and Tarzana Avenue. We'll locate that in a second. Here's the report. At 7 p.m. on the evening of the 14th, St. Valentine's Day, a man wearing a latex pig mask entered Simpson Drugs, number 343, brandishing a large knife and demanding drugs. Pharmacist and store owner Herman Simpson attempted to talk the man out of the robbery, but as Simpson moved closer to the suspect, he was cut on the palm of his hand. Simpson was then forced to open the pharmacy's safe and fill a large paper sack with drugs. When the bag was filled, the suspect left the store through the front door and fled on foot south on Dale Street. We'll track all this in a second. Initial investigation. The suspect was described as a male Caucasian, 5'9", 145 pounds, slight build, New York or Eastern accent, wearing jeans, red shoes, and a ski parka. Simpson managed to fill most of the paper sack with vitamins that he kept in the safe for just such an emergency. However, he was forced to put several controlled drugs, including 505 milligram tablets of methadone, 1,300 milligram tablets of methaqualone, and 2,500 5 milligram tablets of diazepam in the sack. Okay, all controlled substances, barbiturates, methadone, diazepam, that would be like Valium, and methadone, which you would take instead of opium. Crime lab, no evidence sent to crime lab. Witness number 1, Herman Simpson. He's black male, 47, 6'1", 160 pounds. This guy was high. I could tell that for sure. You could see his eyes through the mask, and his pupils were dilated so big you could have driven a Mack truck through them. I keep vitamins in the safe just in case something like this came up. If that boy eats 2/3 of what I put in there, he'll be one healthy dude. If he swallows the other third, he's going to be in trouble. He knew what he wanted. He asked for Dolophine, Quaaludes, and Valium. He put that knife in my face, and then he said, and then fill it with whatever else you got in the safe. That's exactly why I keep the vitamins in the safe. I put a bunch of vitamins C, B, and E. I also stuffed some Doxan and Bilron into the sack. They're both laxatives. He's going to be one mad dude if he swallows either of those. Okay. Trademarks. Seems irrelevant. Well, there's the setup of our case. Okay, so reminder, in this game, it's kind of weird, but we've got the setup. This is here. Nothing was sent to the crime lab, so we're not going to get any reports over time. That's fine. But there is another page to look at that gives us some guidance about what our assignment is, and that's here. So we're playing 16091, and it says our assignment is how to culminate your investigation. Arrest the person or persons responsible for the robbery of the Simpsons drugstore. So very straightforward. Find the suspect. Okay, let's go on the map and try to find these locations and try to remind ourselves how to play the game. There's a couple of details here that looks like we might be able to help us look them up in the mug in their crime history. But let's start by making our notes here. Okay. So evening of the 14th, maybe we'll write some of this down here. Okay, so February 14th. That's the robbery. All right. And we've got a description. White male, 5'9", 145 pounds. Okay, fine. Red shoes. That seems very identifiable. And New York accent. That might help us look them up. All right, let's find this location. Simpson Drugs, location or company 343, Dale Street and Tarzana. Okay, so if we look at our map, we might be able to just find 343. Maybe not without my glasses. But we can also look up Tarzana and what was it? Tarzana. Maybe I need to start writing things down. Dale and Tarzana. Simpson Drugs. Okay. So we do have a directory. It's a little bit unusual from Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective. We've got the white pages. For each person, they tell us where they work, or if not, that they have no place of work, they're retired or whatever. And then the yellow pages are listed by number of the business, and it's not necessarily its street address. And then we've got some contacts which we can talk to, some informants, some pimps, working girls, fences, books. One of these might be drug expert Kenny Lark, who's an informant who knows about drugs. So, and then drug dealers. Okay, so, and then at the end, the other piece of information we have is a sort of street lookup. So we have Barry Avenue and Tarzana. Now, I believe we decided these were either, yes, okay, avenues run east-west, and then streets run north-south. So Tarzana Avenue is going to run east-west, and the order that it's listed is the order on this map, I believe. We should find, so, but maybe not. Maybe it's bottom up. East West Avenue. So, yes, okay, right. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So about 9 down, we should find Tarzana. There it is. Okay, so there's Tarzana Avenue right here. And then it Simpson Drugs crosses 343 Dale Street. Okay, so here is where it is, and I see that it's been a while since I forgot to get out my little stickers. So let me just get my stickers out for us. Mark where it is. Okay, so we have our little sticker set here. We will mark this location 343. Okay. So what are we told? We're told that that's where Simpson Drugs are. And what does he do? He says, get rid of this. He tells us which direction he fled on. Where does he say that? Knife got cut in his hand. Now, you always got to think about when a drug pharmacist gets robbed, anyone gets robbed, jewelry person, drugstore, you have to, if they're insured, that would be a reason for them to fake their own robbery. Doesn't sound like he's faking it, but he could be. Okay, let's see. Left the store through the front door, fled on foot south on Dale. Okay, so we know our suspect fled this way. That's all we know. Doesn't help us much. Suggests he doesn't live north of the city, but he could be anywhere down here, really. and East Coast accent doesn't seem like enough to start looking up suspects. We could take a look at it just so you can remember how this works. We've got mug shots, and then we've got people that we don't have criminal histories of, but we got details. So just to look at what we could do, we could try to look up mug shots of people looking for someone. Let's see, what's this full description that we have? Suspect, Caucasian, 5'9", 145 pounds, slight build, New York or Eastern accent. So we could be looking for someone who's 5'9", who'd served time in the eastern coast of the U.S., New York, something like that. So we could be looking for white Caucasians, 5'9", and wouldn't be a terrible idea, especially if we could look for a drug addict, but maybe it's a little premature. Maybe we should look around a little bit more first. Now, the other way that Mugbook differs from Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective is the way you look up entries. You simply decide who you want to talk to or what company you want to talk to, and then you look them up. This is all alphabetical, this paragraph book. All the cases are combined. And then you look up if that person has anything to say about our case, 6091, and if they do, you read it. And then there's another additional element of Mugbook where you can declare that you're calling in an alert, you're calling in backup if you think something's going to be dangerous. All right, so we could have a further talk with the witness. We could look up this person, Herman Simpson, and talk to him more. We could talk to one of our contacts, specifically probably the person who knows about drugs. The other alternative is this guy was high on drugs who robbed him, right? So, and he's recognizable. He's got red shoes. So probably he's a drug user and has a dealer. So it wouldn't be crazy to try to talk to one of the serious drug dealers in town and see if anyone knows him, recognizes him. Whether they'll be able to talk or not, I don't know. I don't know how our drug informant differs from our drug dealers. So I see three angles, well, four angles for us. One is our informant, two is a drug dealer. I don't know how we would choose which one to talk to. Three is follow up on the witness, talk to him. And four is go through the Mugbook and look for this. We've got a fairly specific description here. White Caucasian male, 5'9", from New York. All viable approaches. What does the channel think? Any interesting points of interest on South Dale that could have seen him running? Oh, that's an interesting idea. I mean, it would make sense that we could try to check out this building right here that seems to be facing it on Hammett Avenue. They might see whether he went left or right. Not a terrible idea. You might mark that as option number 5. Let's write these things down. We've got informant. We've got drug dealers. We've got the Mugbook. we've got neighbors, and we've got, maybe I should turn off the automatic tracking. Okay, and then we've got witness. Right now we only have one witness. All right. DJ Moneycut says, let's go to our informant first. All right, so you know that, as I've said in this channel before many times, because of the delays in YouTube, it's a little hard for me to ask questions and get replies. So the moment you have something you want to do, you can just shout it out. Isara says the informant looks interesting, but how would we threaten them? This is, so to remind you, these are labeled as Delaney's notes. This is just a scan from the page that's here somewhere, here. And we're told that this was the notes, the directory of a cop, a good cop who disappeared at some point. So we don't know if we're going to meet that cop or find out what happened to him at some point. So these are his notes. All right, let's try Kenny Wark just for the hell of it. See what this informant's all about. We've never talked to him before. These must be our marks here when we visited that person. Okay, Kenny Wark on drugs. So we're going to look up Kenny Wark, and we're going to remember what case we're looking for and try to only read that. Okay, so Kenny Wark, and then we're looking for only the information from this case. So try not to read or pay attention to the others. He says, I'm not saying I know who knocked over Simpsons, but word is some guy named Doc had something to do with it. I gotta go. All right, so he gives us a nickname, Doc. All right, now feels like we really got information to try to find this guy in the mug book. So I think we should try to look up this guy. So what do we know about him? Our suspect. 5'9", Caucasian, slight build, goes by the alias Doc, has a New York accent. All right, let's see if we can't find this guy. Brian is doing his little joke. Brian from Game Brigade. If you don't know Brian's channel, you might want to check it out. Okay. All right, so we're looking for, this is a kind of awkward way to do this, but let me see. Can I do this? Can I toggle tracking, do a one shot, and then just keep this area focused? Will this work? Boy, sometimes the tools I write are not bad. Okay, let's just scan around for a 5'9" person. 5'10", Elliot Daniel. Where are the AKAs? Okay, so we're just gonna jump around to see if we can't find an AKA Doc. Let me just, what, can I do this? Let me turn this off and let me scan around. We'll zoom in a little bit so you can see with me. I'm just gonna look around for people if we got an alias Doc. That would be our first easiest way to find someone. Here's Kenny. This is the person we just talked to. Look at this. Here's our informant, Kenny Wark. Let's make sure it's not him. No, 6'2", too tall. Donnie, Gordy. This is actually very interesting to be going through this because we've been talking on the Discord, brainstorming about how to use criminal histories in high and low, and how to use something like a mug book if we want to add it to high and low. And this and Gumshoe are the games that try to use something like this, and I'm hoping we can find a better mechanic that's more. This is sort of an all or nothing mechanic. Gumshoe was a little bit like this as well. If you find the person, it feels like you've solved the case almost. And if you don't find them, you don't have a chance. And I wonder if there's not some intermediate. Okay. If you've got a good memory for names, you can see how you might go through this whole thing and remember some of these nicknames. Nickname Sam Spade for future cases. Now, just because we don't find him here doesn't necessarily mean anything. Maybe Doc is because he was a doctor and that's not an alias he used. Deceased. Now we're in women, so that's it. All right, so what is the chat joking about? Doc is one of the drug dealers, I think, says DJ Moneycut. Rob says, Jesse, you're cheating with the time chart again. You've got to keep track of time. Okay, yes, you're right. So we talked to the informant. That moved us around to 2-2. Okay. All right. And then DJ Moneycut says, hey, you just saw one of the drug dealers was a doc. MD, a.k.a. Doc. So MD, a.k.a. Doc. Well, we didn't find this person in our criminal history. Do we need to have another look at this? 6'0" Matthews Donald. It's an open question whether we can look up just MD. I don't think we can. I think we're gonna have to find out who this is. Why did we not find the AKA doc? Where's my glasses here? What about the ones with no photos? Yes, we could try to look them up here. They're a little odd because they're typically not normal people. Like this is a smuggler outside of the US, organized crime figures, but there are AKAs, so maybe Robert Dawson, Thomas Dalby. All right, let's look at these. We're looking for an MD name. Now we're looking. These aren't normal. Well, maybe they would be an out-of-state person. Okay, let's keep looking then. Maybe it is an out-of-state person that we don't have a photo on. Can you not see this whole thing? Okay. We're in women now. So, okay. I didn't see an MD. Does feel like we should be able to find this guy, though. Here's Marcus Descalos, but he's a Greek organized crime. That's not our guy. Okay, let's try this way. There is a list of people in the tiniest font we've ever seen, but I wonder if we can't look up a name here ending in D. Can you see an MD here? It looks like an N. Here's M. Douglas. How about that? Page 18. Let's see if we can't look at M. Douglas. No, that's Martha. Martha Jane Douglas. Interesting. So we don't see an MD. Or are these... Yeah, these are organized properly. What is this? Is this an M? It's a little hard to see on that font. I don't think so. That looks like a W. How about... Are these M? Boy, it's hard to see on this font. There's our Douglas M. I don't think we have any more M's. Maybe it's just a person who's a doctor, who used to be a doctor. Did we just overlook it? Or M. Dixon was a woman. But maybe it was... No. Dixon... You're saying... Maybe it's a laser photo, or was there a Dixon in here? Dixon, you think that's an M? Okay, page 15 or 13. Let's look at that. Aha, Melvin Dixon. Let's see what we got here. Melvin Dixon, 5'8", 140. That sounds about right. White, male, possession of drugs with intent to sell, charges dropped, concealed weapon, suspended sentence, assault, 5 months in the city, 3-inch scar right palm, no AKA. Brown eyes, brown hair, age 25. Do we have an age on our suspect? Pretty young. 5'9", 145 pounds, slight build, New York or Eastern accent, no age. Okay, this could be our guy right here. Dixon, Melvin. All right, good catch. So he's not listed as an alias, Doc, but now we found him by talking to the informant. Now, I feel like we're ready to solve this case. We can go talk to him right now. There's his arrest record. So let me remind you how the alert system works. When you go look up someone, before you look them up, you can declare an alert. And the alert means you basically call in backup. And let's read what it says about alerts. What happens? There's a consequence. There's a good thing if you called it properly. So you call out alert, then you look it up. And when you look up the paragraph for them, it'll say, hey, if you, for some people, the rare person, if you should have called up alert, it'll say, if you called an alert, read this, otherwise this. Otherwise, if you didn't read this. But if there's no entry for alert, you get penalized. So what's the penalty if you call it and there's no entry? If alert is called and contact is not, the player loses a turn, so you just lose a time click. And remember, the sooner you end the game, the better. And then if you want to end the game, you declare that you're going to try to arrest someone. So we don't have proof about this guy yet. All right, let's go look him up. Before we go visit him, let's look him up in our directory and see if he's there where he works. Remember, this doesn't tell you where they live, but it tells you where they work if they have a job. Okay, so Melvin Dixon is unemployed. Doesn't mean we can't look him up. It just means we can't go visit where he works. Okay, I think we should call an alert and go knock on his door. Now, how we're going to find him, I don't know how that works. It is interesting that he's got a scar and the pharmacist also got cut. But maybe if you get into a lot of knife fights, you just happen to get cut on the hand. Joseph Mayu says, hold on. Okay, maybe his father, who's a doctor. You're saying we had a different entry? I think the doctor part, I don't think he's a doctor. I think this is just saying his initials are MD, which is why they call him Doc. That's all. But on the other hand, you've got a good point, though, that we've got other people named Dixon. We've got Morris and Jane. Could be relatives. So here's what we'll do. It's a good catch. It's a good catch. We're going to put in our notes that there are 2 other Dixons. So I think what we do is we call an alert, we try to find Mel Dixon. I don't know how the game is going to react to that. Does it know how to find him? If we can't find him, then maybe we knock on these doors to see if they're relatives. I mean, Dixon could just be a popular name. It's not that unusual name. So I think we should first try to knock on his door with an alert, with backup, in case he tries to run. If we can't find him, we'll knock on those doors. All right. So we're officially declaring an alert on our second turn of the game. I forget how this works. Should we be moving this before we go there or afterwards? All right, let's move it to do our alert lookup of Melvin Dixon. Perry says, I'd go to the relatives first. Okay, let's look up. It's declaring an alert, don't forget. That could slow us down, or it could help back up, catch the guy if he tries to rabbit out here. Okay, so I see an entry for Dixon. Okay, let's see what he says. Okay. Oops, what happened? Okay, I'm not saying I know for sure, but there's this guy who's always hanging around. I heard him talking about how he knocked off some drugstore. His name is Johnny. I don't know his last name, but he's got this tattoo on his shoulder that says Born to be Wild. So remember that we're not supposed to read this part about Dr. Norris. One of the tricky parts of this game. So there was no alert here. We talked to this guy. And he gave us someone else's name. He claims it's not him. I don't know his last name. He's got this tattoo on his shoulder that says Born to Be Wild. All right, so because there was no alert, we have to move one more spot of a wasted backup that just sat in their car. But I don't know what to make of this. It's a weird thing that just happened. Like, we think he's our suspect, and he's basically just given us a little bit of dialogue about knowing who did it. Okay, Johnny, Born to Be Wild tattoo. That sounds like it's, if I had to guess, it feels like this game wants us to spend this game going through mugshots. So he could be lying to us. That's a fairly stereotype thing about Born to Be Wild tattoo. Or we could be dealing with another person that he was in lockup with or knows about. I'm inclined to see if we can't find a Johnny. There might be a lot of them. Let's see, too many though, actually. There's a John page, there's a J, page 4. Maybe we'll just walk through this. They do list scars and tattoos sometimes, so we're still looking for someone who might be 5'9", white. Let's see. Elliot Daniel. Sorry, Elliot Daniel J. Could be a Johnny. West Coast. No, no. Is he lying or telling the truth? Here's John David Hansen, 6'1". Scar. 185. That's not a slight build. William James. Feels like this case is shoe leather case to me. I'm looking for a Johnny. Born to Be Wild, that could be a motorcycle gang thing. We might want to see if we can't find gang activity. Has everyone seen Easy Rider? Famous movie. After I finish looking for this, here's Jonathan Pope, 6'2", 190. That's not a slim build person. Illinois, no. Stephen John Douglas. Bingo. We got him right here. Look. John Douglas Simpson, 5'7", 140, white, drug possession, joyriding, Born to Be Wild tattoo on left shoulder. aka Johnny Simpson. Oh, Johnny Simpson. Yeah, there we go. Son of the pharmacist. It's gonna be the son of the pharmacist. Wow, cut his father too. Father must not have recognized him though. All right. Well, here we go. Johnny Simpson. John Douglas Simpson. Well, now. All right, so let's spend a minute now talking about what you'd like to do. Let's look up Simpson, and then we'll discuss what we want to do here. So if we look up Simpson, let's see what we've got here. So, Herman Simpson at 343. That was the drugstore. And then John Simpson, the son, doesn't work. So notice we don't have a home address for these people. So what do you want to do? We could just call an alert, call back up and try to talk to him. Or we could talk to the father. Maybe the father will say something about the son. Joseph says, it's interesting that it just says drug possession, but not selling. I wonder what he's doing with the drugs. I mean, he's probably a drug addict, but he could be trying to sell them for his... But he was high on drugs when he stole them, so that's generally a drug addict wanting their own drugs. So the question I have for you is, do we visit the father and then the son, or do we call for backup and just try to arrest the son right now, or confront him? Maybe we should talk to the father first. All right, let's talk to the father first, and then we'll go to the son. All right, so we're going to take our time chart. We're going to move ourselves down to the next day, and we're going to look up Simpson. And this is going to be this is going to be an indication of the problem with this system, because right next to the father is going to be the son entry, and you'd want to not read it. So let's take this off the camera until I can get it right. All right, so we're talking to the father. We're not calling the alert. Maybe we'll talk to him at his house and the son will be there. Okay, so we could actually, it looks like, talk to the son, the father, or go to the drugstore. Well, we said we were going to talk to the father, so let's try to do that first. My guess is that the guy is hooked on something heavy like smack. He probably knocked over my store so he could make a trade with his pusher. He might keep the Dolafine, which is just methadone, but he'll probably swap or sell the Quaaludes and the Valium. I say if you can find his pusher, you'll find him. All right, well, that was a clue to talk to the drug dealer, which is exactly what we did. Or the informant, I guess. All right, now let's talk to the son. But should we call for backup? Now, my thinking now is that it's not as important, because before we had only one lead to this guy, If he ran from us, we don't know where we would go or how we would track him. In this case, we've got his father and his drugstore, so it feels like if he ran from us, the cops would still be able to find him through the father. So what do you think? Should we just try to talk to him, or should we call for backup first because he's our guy? Sort of depends whether you want to play it safe or marshal or preserve, be more careful about our resources. DJ Moneycut has a nice point. DJ Moneycut says he has a knife. It was an armed robbery. I think that's a very smart way to think about it. You've got a violent crime with someone who's high on drugs with a knife. Okay, so we're going to call another alert and we're going to talk to the son. Here we go. Good call. Very good reasoning. Perry says just go for the arrest. Okay, that's interesting. It's not a bad idea if you wanted some great score, but I think we're a little more cautious than that. I think we should talk to him first, if that's indeed what we're doing. Okay, so here we go. Simpson, Douglas. Alert. So we have declared an alert. Let's see what happens. Simpson opens the door of his low-rent Westwood apartment and for the moment appears dazed. Suddenly, he flings the door wide open, slashes at you with a hunting knife. The sharp blade rips through the material of your coat and cuts into your shoulder. You reach for your service revolver. Well, actually, I don't think we're supposed to read this. Because of this alert. He pushes, let's just continue reading. I think this is what you would read if you didn't declare an alert. Moves 2 turns, deep cut requires hospital attention. Okay, that's if we didn't declare an alert. But because it's an alert, we would jump to the special alert section. Okay, so here's the alert section that we get because we declared an alert. So now we look up Simpson and we read what happened because we brought backup. Here we go. Good call. You locate Simpson's apartment in a rundown section of Wentwood. When his landlady opens the door of his room, you find Simpson sitting at his kitchen table. He's dazed out of it. A needle and spoon, as well as a piece of rubber hose and burning candle. That's for shooting up heroin. As well as a piece of rubber hose and a burning candle sit on the table in front of him. You call an ambulance. He's in no condition to answer your questions. Okay, I don't know why it didn't explain it better, but I guess it means we were more careful. So that's it. It's time to arrest him. Did I advance this? I can't remember now. But that was nice. We finally got an alert right. I think it's time to arrest him. All right, so how do we arrest? What do the rules say about arresting? We basically just go to the end and see what it's like. But let's read the rules for people who are new to Mugbook just to get a feel for it. So you want to end the game. If you were playing multiplayer, you declare that you're going to end it. You can only do it once. It's thematically arresting someone or executing a search warrant on their house. You probably should declare what you want to do. He's at the hospital, so we're just going to go arrest him at the hospital. And then you read the solution. And then your game is over. You're either correct or not. And then you lose and the rest of the players go on. So I think we've got our guy, a nice short case. We're going to arrest him at the hospital. I don't remember if this takes up a click of time. I don't think it does. But again, I don't remember if I move this. Do I owe a time slot? I don't know. but one place this whole case. Okay, let's read the epilogue here and see how we did. So end of the book are the solutions. Okay, we find our case, which is the Simpson store robbery. We're arresting him at the hospital. Tuesday, February 14th, 7 p.m. Investigation began on 2-1, Dale Street in Tarzana. Solution: John Douglas Simpson, no relation to Herman Simpson, no relation, has a $100 a day heroin habit. Johnny, as his friends call him, had already sold everything he owned of value. In order to keep the smack flowing through his veins, Johnny resorted to burglary and armed robbery. When Mel Dixon, Johnny's main supplier, suggested that he would be willing to swap heroin for any other drug Simpson could get his hands on, the plan to stick up the Simpson drugstore was set in motion. Johnny had no strategy in mind. He pulled off the robbery in the same fashion he had pulled off his burglaries and muggings, by putting a ski mask over his head and just doing it. Okay, highest possible score is 10 merit points. So it says if you solve this on or before 3-1, which is what I've got us down here, but Rob says you didn't move the marker, so it should be here. All right, so because of Rob, we don't get our perfect score because of what Rob caught us, but we did get 8. So we could have arrested him a little bit sooner. For each false arrest, we would have lost 4. And we didn't do it. But look at all these other witnesses we could have talked to. Rich Clark, Nick Frost, Memorial Hospital. We could have gone to the hospital and talked to him. Whole bunch of things we didn't do. We just rushed this. But this game needed you to arrest it. If you wanted a perfect score, you had to arrest this guy super quickly. The really odd thing here is that he's not related. That's a surprise. We assumed he was the son. That would have been an embarrassing moment. It's like, Herman, we found the robber. It's your son. And then he would say, first of all, I'm black. This kid's white. Why? How did you think he was my son? Second of all, on what basis did you assume he was my son? And we would just say, last names are the same. Then we would get demoted. So there you have it, though. A very short case. The channel was right on the right wavelength with this one. We went right to it. A little bit odd, these short paragraphs. Like, you're like, are we talking to him? How did we find him? In one case, we thought we knew who it was, and he's like, I know who did it. So a little bit of an odd case. It just made sense. But I did note that that the store owner was black. Interesting. Very, very mug book photograph centered case. Short case, the shortest case we've played. Mainly focused on identifying people in the mug book, which was kind of fun. I mean, I wouldn't want every case to be like that, but it's okay for some of them. A little odd how short it was, and that the game really did need you to do it that quickly if you wanted to get the best score. If we hadn't declared that alert the first time, then we would have solved it in the best time. But the channel was very smart, thinking you better have an alert if this guy's got a knife. And that turned out to be the critical decision that let us solve this without getting injured. So good work on the channel. Whoever suggested that first about him having a knife was wise. Okay, fun, short case, a little bit of a snack here, but that's appropriate for our Sunday sessions. Let's check in with the chat. Any thoughts here? Rob says, did you get promoted to patrol officer first class? So there's a whole system in this game for promotions. It's very odd. It works like this. you've got ranks based on how many merit points you get. And then when you get demerits, you jump down. And then there's this whole thing about if you're playing multiplayer, there's only 3 people who can be district captains. Did that end tell us merit points we get? Did I skip over that? Oh, right. We got 8 merit points. That was the end of the game's score. So it's not just the score. It's actually, we would be bumping ourselves up here. I guess I'll record that we got 8 merit points, but we haven't really been tracking our total unless someone remembers how far up we've gotten promoted. I know we did bad in one case and you can get demoted all the way down to a shoe salesman. That's one of the running jokes on this channel, that if you lose 31 demerits, you become a shoe salesman, but still pursue criminals on the side. I love it. Joseph says, I think we're actually patrolman 2nd class by this point. All right, well, if someone can remind me offline what our total demerits are, I'll start keeping track of them here. I'll just put Simpson Drugstore 8 MP and 0 demerit. Subtract demerits. Okay, so that's, we don't have to track that. All right, so but we've got our case 1, we skipped case 2, 3, this is case 4. So I don't remember what score we had here, but we'll update that on our next playthrough. Okay, no other comments, then we'll call an end to this session quite early. Fun, different experience, different feel than Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, but this was a very unusually short case. Our other cases haven't been this short. Rob is going to decide what case we play next. And Rob says, good game, you caught the bad guy. All right, folks. For those of you who are joining me for 7th Citadel tomorrow night, get some rest. For those who aren't, give some thought whether you think we should play something on Tuesday and what. And to the Patreon supporters who are help paying for the games we play on this channel, thank you. If you can't or don't want to pay the Patreon stuff, that's completely fine too. It's a joy to have you guys and gals join me for these. Makes all the difference in terms of my enjoyment. I'll see you next time.